Good morning, students. Welcome to your Read Aloud. And today I have another fish story for you, and this is Big Al. And I'm going to have my kitty here, and this little kitty is called Goofy. And Goofy looks a lot like a cat I used to have. And he is a cat that used to always keep his tongue out. And so this is a very dear little animal to me, a little stuffy, and I'm going to leave him on my knee while I read. And I am going to read this story, Big Al, by Andrew Clemens Yoshi. And I want you to think about making connections. And I want you to think about self-to-text connections and text-to-text connections. And this is how we write them. And you can use your Post-its. And when you use your Post-its, I'm going to use a marker, but you can use a crayon or you can use a pencil. And you can write on the Post-it, or you can draw a picture if you have a connection on the Post-it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put those up there for now, and I'm going to start our story, Big Al. How's Goofy doing? In the wide blue sea, there was a very friendly fish named Big Al. You could not find a nicer fish. But Al was also very, very, very scary. Other fish seemed to have at least one friend. Some had many. But Big Al had none. He did not really blame the other fish. How could he expect little fish to trust a great big fish with eyes and skin and teeth like his? So Big Al was lonely and cried big, salty tears into the big, salty sea. I'm looking at his picture and I'm making an inference, and I'm thinking he looks pretty sad. He's lonesome. Oops, Goofy's gone. But Big Al really wanted friends, so he worked at it. First, he tried wrapping himself up with seaweed. He thought it was a great disguise, but no one else did. Who wants to stop and talk to a floating plant that has big, sharp teeth? We'll put him up here. Then he thought if he puffed himself up, round, the other fish would laugh and see how clever and silly he could be. All they saw was how big he could be, and they steered clear. Steered means to move away. Steered clear, kind of like how you steer a car or a boat, you steer clear. Very early one morning, Big Al went down to the bottom and flopped and wiggled himself into the sand until he was almost covered up. He looked much smaller. When other fish came near, Big Al talked and joked with them and had a delightful time. But then one scratchy little grain of sand got stuck in his gills, and he, chew, sneezed. When the clouds of sand cleared away, all the other fish were gone. Big Al even changed his color one day so he could look like he belonged to a school of tiny fish. Passing by, he bubbled along with them for a while, laughing and feeling like he was just one of the crowd. But he was so big and clumsy that when all the tiny fish darted, remember these are those fish that dart, that makes me connect to that other story, the fish in Swimmy, darted to the left and then quickly back to the right, Big Al just plowed straight ahead. He went bumping and thumping right into the little fish. Before he could even say, "Excuse me," they were gone, and he was all alone again, sadder than ever. Just when Big Al was starting to be sure that he would never have a single friend, something happened. What happened? What's around all the fish? What is that? He was floating along sadly, watching some of the smaller fish, and was wishing that they would come closer. As he watched, a net dropped down silently from above, and in an instant they were caught. Uh-oh, what's going to happen next? Big Al forgot all about being lonely, and he forgot all about being sad. His eyes bulged. I read another story about bulging eyes. Mean Jean, her eyes bulged, remember? Out bigger and rounder than ever, and with a mighty flip of his tail, he opened his big mouth and charged straight at the net. The net was strong, but Big Al was stronger. He ripped right through it, and all the little fish rushed out through the hole. Oh, what did Big Al do? But when Big Al tried to turn around and go out of the hole, he got all tangled up in the net and got stuck. The net went higher and higher and higher and higher toward the bright surface of the sea, and the little fish watched Big Al as he disappeared above them. When the little fish were able to speak again, all they talked about was the huge, wonderful fish that had saved them. How great to be free, but what a shame that that big fellow had been captured. Just then, there was a tremendous crashing splash above them. And the small fish dashed away. Was it the net again? Not at all. It was Big Al. Those fishermen took one look at him and threw him right back into the ocean. What do you think the fishermen thought? And now there's one huge, puffy, scary, fierce-looking fish in the sea who has more friends than anyone else. Big Al. And there he is, hanging out with all his friends. And that's the story of Big Al. And I can make a text-to-text connection, and I am going to write my T to T. Oop, don't do that. Don't leave the marker top off, because then it doesn't work very well. So make sure you always put the top on when you're done with the Sharpies. A T to T, and I'm going to draw a fish, and I'm going to write the date. Today is 9/18, and I am going to connect to Swimmy because and I am going to make a text-to-text connection to Swimmy. Well, because there were fish in both stories, and that's what that means, but it was more than just fish. Both fish, Al and Swimmy, wanted something. And you can make a text-to-text connection too and tell me what you're thinking, and then I'll take a couple of answers to share, and I'll tell you what I was thinking. Okay? So that's your read aloud for today, Big Al. And you are making text-to-text or text-to-self connections.